Some individuals can exhibit appalling behavior. In this instance, a man emerged from his vehicle and physically mistreated a stray dog. What unfolded afterward is truly astonishing. This guy was on his way to his favorite bar, but it was pretty clear he had been drinking at home. He was driving all wobbly, and when he reached his favorite parking spot, he saw that it was already taken. There was a stray dog enjoying the sun and trying to stay warm nearby. The dog was just chilling, not bothering anyone. But this guy didn't care. He honked his horn to get the dog's attention. The poor pup, probably hungry and tired from living on the streets, got up. The dog looked really sad as he walked away with his head down, dragging his feet. Most people would feel sorry for the sad dog, but not this guy. He seemed to care only about himself. He parked his car and got out. He was stumbling a bit, but he made his way toward the dog. Onlookers didn't know what he was going to do, but they were shocked by what he did next. He got to the dog, whose tail started to wag a little, and then he kicked him. How terrible is that? But the attitude did make some sort of sense. In the country, the event played off. The man and dog were in China. They are known for having some pretty horrible animal cruelty laws. You can face fines or other consequences when attacking animals in China, but only when they belong to someone, and you are charged for damaging property. This means that animals that don't belong to someone, for example, stray dogs, are left without any protection. It's pretty sad that any place still would have so little care about animals today. That just means that the animals need to stand up for themselves. What happened next is shocking. Other dogs will chew or act out in other ways when they get really stressed out, so that might be what happened here. But I like to think that what happened next was a sweet act of complete revenge. There were a couple of people who had watched the drunk guy kick the dog, and then also when the dog ran away, but they could never have predicted what was going to happen next. As the people were watching, the dog came back, but he didn't come back on his own. He brought 2 other dogs with him. The dogs ran past every other car that was parked in the parking lot. They ran straight toward the drunk guy's vehicle. He was going to get a nasty surprise when he got out of the pub. The dogs went to town on his vehicle. They started chewing on the car. Every piece that they could get their mouths on was chewed. One of the dogs got up in the car to reach the window wipers. The dog got to the panels above the wheels and all the other pieces that they could fit their mouths around. It was really lucky that the people who were watching from a distance could film it all, or no one would believe that a pack of dogs would have been the ones to dish out some street justice, and the drunk guy would never have known what happened to his car either. But when you take into account what happened a few days later, that might not have been such a bad thing. The drunk man later got back to the car and screamed his car was destroyed. To those who love animals, seeing some justice being served is quite glorious. He might have kicked a poor, defenseless pup, but at least he got what was coming to him. I would have loved to see his face when he got there and saw the damaged vehicle, or even better, when he found out what caused the damage. Hopefully, it made him think twice before he deliberately injured another animal in the future. This made that area slightly safer for the animals who lived there, but sadly, there were still plenty of other people who were unkind to dogs. Besides, living on the streets is never safe anyway. There's a big problem with stray animals in the area, and when a lot of animals are searching the same areas for food and water, then there won't be enough to go around. That leads to starving animals in terrible conditions. All the animals in the area needed to be helped, and there were those who fed them daily, but sadly, even those who want to help animals can't save them all. But when they know about specific animals, then it's easier to try and figure it out. You won't believe what happened to the little gang of dogs that roughed up the car. A group from the local shelter saw the video of the dogs and they decided they wanted to rescue them. They would take the dogs into the shelter and give them a warm and safe place to live and food to eat there. They could play and be a lot happier. So they contacted the locals to help them find the dogs so they could be moved. This would have been a happy ending for all of them, but you won't believe what happened next. The rescue group went out, but they couldn't find the dogs anywhere. They searched the entire area for the 3 dogs that destroyed the car, but suddenly there were no dogs around the area at all. They couldn't understand why this group of locals that fed the dogs knew how many dogs lived in the suburb. They found 1 or 2 stray dogs and helped them, but most had just vanished. They didn't understand what was going on until they got to an alley next to some of the shops. The rescuers were shocked by what they saw. There were crates filled with dogs, not just one or two in a crate. Instead, it was packed full of pups. They couldn't move inside them. If the dog on the road that day looked sad, these dogs looked miserable. They were clearly being packed up for a reason, but what could that be? Sadly, sometimes people aren't nice. Just as a group of good people saw the video and were inspired, some not-so-nice people saw the same video and decided to act too. They didn't see any justice in the video or care that the drunk guy hurt the dog first. All they cared about was that the dogs damaged someone's property. They saw them as pests, not as pets like most of us do, and they wanted to get rid of those pests. As one group of people went out to save the dogs, another went out to catch them and destroy them. They wanted to round up the dogs for very different reasons. They would take them away and destroy them, away from their homes. To their thinking, everyone should just be grateful for what they were doing. One of the ideas was even to sell them to the meat trade. It was truly horrible, and those poor dogs had no chance. Looking at them, crying inside the crates, it was heartbreaking. This was definitely not the happy ending that the rescuers had envisioned for them. They had to do something, but it could be very dangerous. If the mob that was rounding these dogs up came back, then they could be very dangerous. They wouldn't let the dogs go without a fight. The rescue team had to act quickly. One of them went to get their truck while another stayed on the lookout. They got the truck back, and they were trying to figure out how to transport them. That was when one of the lookouts let them know that the bad guys were coming back. They had to move quickly, or there was going to be much more of a fight than they might be able to handle. They had just set out to save the 3 dogs, but there was no way that they could leave any of them behind. They picked up the crates just as they were. The dogs weren't feeling safe, but the most important thing was to rescue them. They had just loaded the last box, and all the rescuers quickly got into their vehicles. When the angry group came back, they grabbed rocks to throw at the dogs and the rescuers, but thankfully, they were too slow. The rescuers drove away and brought the dogs back to the shelter. There were many dogs, and they couldn't take care of all of them by themselves. Some other shelters in the area helped by taking in some of the dogs, and a few found homes with people in other countries. But in the end, it all began with one sad puppy that had been hurt, and this started a series of events that saved many lives, including his own and those of his 2 friends. That's the happy ending to our story. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you.